What's up guys, Xbox Tech Junkie back today with a third video. Today's the release of Halo Edge of Dawn, the long-awaited book by Kelly Gay, which is continuing the story of Halo Infinite. Now, like I said, this is my third video of the day. The first two, one was the spoiler-free review of Halo Edge of Dawn, so if you are looking specifically just to hear my thoughts and excitements for the book, definitely check that video out. I will talk about no major spoilers at all, but if you do want to hear spoilers, because either you just aren't going to read the book or you just love to have things spoiled, I did release also a long video about just every major plot point. There are some things that when I was going through editing that I was like, I missed, but for me they were very minute details that I know some people will probably be like, you didn't talk about this. But I think for the most part, the ones that I really want to focus on, I hit in that video. But there was one thing that I left out specifically for this video. So if you've already watched my spoiler video, I honestly recommend, if you haven't, to watch that first. Because this video will be pretty much me just going off of that same video and talking about the epilogue, or as it's called, the Harbinger's Lament. And this is the last 3 or 4 pages of the book. Now, you're probably wondering, why didn't I just have this included in the spoiler video? The reason is because when I first read it, my jaw dropped, and I had to think about all the major implications. Already, the spoiler video was around an hour long, and it almost hit an hour and a half, which is why I had to cut a lot from it. And it possibly could have gone to a 2-hour-long video had I included what I wanted to discuss, but I decided not to. So, with that being said, I am going to say it right here, right now. If you have been trying to avoid spoilers at all costs for this book, this video is not for you. It has a major spoiler for the book, even though it's the last 2 or 3 pages. I do recommend just steering clear of this video, not watching it, and maybe coming back at a later time when you've read just to hear my overall thoughts on this. But if you are ready to hear your spoilers, we're going to jump into it right now. So, for those who don't know, Halo Edge of Dawn follows the story of Master Chief post-Infinite. Now, one of the most major things that we were hoping to learn more about was the Endless, this mysterious new species that was introduced in the game as a possible bigger threat than the Flood, one of the greatest tragedies that the Foreigners ever committed, even after finding the Halo Ray. And we get a lot of that through the story, but more specifically in this last tale told by the Harbinger. If you haven't seen it already, I released a YouTube short where I made an updated reading list for what you should read and or prepare for in order to prepare for this book. The list that I had originally released, which was Infinite and Rubicon Protocol, and maybe Shadows of Reach, have not changed. Those are the 3 that I would say, 2 of them being Rubicon Protocol and Shadows of Reach aren't completely necessary. I would say Rubicon Protocol is a little bit more necessary than Shadows of Reach, but Infinite is the biggest one you're going to want to play in order to prepare for this book. With that being said, though, there is one extra thing that I now recommend, but only if you want to avoid possibly a spoiler. It depends on how you're going to look at this. There is a short story in Halo Fractures called Promises to Keep, and there's a reason why I recommend that. Hello everyone, my name is James, and today I'm going to be reading to you Harbinger's Lament. Now, for those who might be wondering, this is pretty much just the Harbinger's final just look back on her life and the life of her species up until the point of her death. So you're going to get a lot of background into where her and the Endless come from, and just her overall thought process throughout Infinite. He hovered over the waters, a wisp of the lords of old. The bright horizon trembled in weight. Great wings and flowing tail, pure life bound in celestial circulation, verdant gaze, prelude to breath. One of making, they of making. His nature from a pulse beget. He was, we are, he became. A radiant shower. Spores become shores, we sprang forth. Vessels of eternal light, computation, circulation, quantum blood and neurobone within a skin, a glow of home. Our world was life beyond the before. From his light we were made. Among all kinds we rose. Over the flow of the twinning streams, as that which past became, was from is. We sought lasting, we sought unity. We grew from dust, we grew as his, were beloved as his. We grew anew, the children of Abaddon, seeking to last everlasting, to swim in the twinning streams, to be at one with the current, what was, what is, what will be. Each of us grew anew, we beget what became us. Familiars, propagation, echoes. Each a kind of our own, to preserve, to cultivate, to build. We were as he is to us. Some we kept close, some we sent out, some remain among you. We stood by, but not by. Tide rose and the streams flowed, and the stars winked in and out. Life bloomed and its petals fell, defeat on repeat. Until one day, the children of death were set upon the cosmos, hubris and creation and gnashing of teeth. A cradled kind torn asunder and set loose upon those beside and those before. Hunters of his kin, crafters of his yoke, blind to us, but not bound to us. A new wave had crashed upon this galaxy's shores, a twisted deluge once more, seeking unity, but not like before, and not as we sought. Not to commune, but to command. It was like our Lord. It is not our Lord, but it seeks to be yours. Countless synchrons align like stars. A constellation, brought a broken freedom in the shape of a ring. Its pervasive pulse cleaving the wake of cleansing, rattled and ruptured our timeless tethers. Our entangled essence dammed off from the eternal fount. A twisted tributary, both misery and sweetness, to our everlasting weeping and wails. We cast our plight upon the hunters. We weave our fate to those that follow. Though we had come before, the first freed by the displaced, I search and cannot know like I should know, cannot find my kind, my mind. Once I wielded the kinetic light of an aborted age, but now I can but scrape power off a scant surface. Like wiping the dew from a vessel, full, but closed. For once, I feel like the ticking clock. Reclamation, provocation, they do not understand, but they must provide an end all the same. He like machine, and her like mind. Photon, neurons, alloy flesh to bind. If I could but show them the truth, what king their kind were built to be, more than false echoes of a sundered star. Cut off from the glow, I've lost my light. Eternal whole, now finished fight. My last drops, an entangled plea, to return the why of me to we. But to no surprise, this is no surprise, we live all of it at once, to remember, to be, to become. I knew I was to die, but could not have lived differently, would not. The flow we map within the glow, it is not immutable current, but the overlap of cause and consequence. The universe is a box. We know its edges, we feel its spaces. Mine to be a story told, a herald of new and now and old. Last drops of light to sing their song. Tell them I'm sorry, it took so long. So one thing that I do a lot when making my videos is if there are certain cutscenes or places in the game that I can record using, the Xbox DVR and then put them into my videos, I'll do that, especially with my newer videos, as you have seen. But when I was doing that for Infinite, trying to capture more footage for the Harbinger, listening to what she says connects so much more with what she is saying at the very end of this book. There's parts where the Harbinger, she tells Chief that they're not enemies. They don't have to be enemies, but yet she continues to fight him. It reminds of me when the heretic leader in Halo 2 goes, "Yo, Arbiter, ask the Oracle about Halo and what it's supposed to do," and then he just shoots him. It's like, why did you do that? Like, if you had just communicated, you probably could have lived and converted the Arbiter earlier. And it's the same thing. Why didn't the Harbinger just communicate to Chief why she was doing the things that she was doing? And it's because from what has happened from the point that her kind were imprisoned by the Forerunners, specifically the Criterion, in after the rings were fired, something about her had changed to the point where she was deluded. She was not herself. She wasn't that same endless that she once was, and she was just merely just fighting tooth and nail just to free her people. And now you're probably thinking, James, you're talking about something cool, but there's a whole major thing in there that you were just kind of not discussing, and I know we're going to discuss it now. Abaddon, or yeah. I don't actually know how to pronounce the name. I'm pretty sure it's Abaddon. I could be pronouncing it wrong. When I saw that the Endless were the children of Abaddon, my mouth dropped because I knew the name. I knew what Abaddon was, but at the same time, I was like, wait, do I know what Abaddon is? So I whipped out the handy-dandy Halo Encyclopedia, and sure enough, Abaddon was exactly what I remembered it being. It is believed to be a precursor Ancilla. Ancillas are, similar to what Cortana is. They're AIs, they're artificial intelligence. Obviously, artificial intelligence is a little different for Forerunner technology, but it's even more different for precursor technology, to the point that most Forerunners believe that precursors didn't have artificial intelligence, and if they did, it wasn't living. Like, living. And that's exactly what Abaddon is. It is a living artificial intelligence. Now, the most important thing to know about Abaddon, for those who don't know, is the first real appearance of the name Abaddon is in Promises to Keep, a short story in Halo Fractures. I'm going to make another video on that short story itself, but to give you a quick synopsis, essentially a century or few centuries later, after Born Stellar lights the rings, he receives that message from the Librarian at the end of Silentium where she says, yo, the rings are going to destroy the domain, you need to fix it. It's like, this is integral before you guys leave or do whatever it is you're going to do after finding the rings. So Born Stellar and a crew of Forerunners go back to Maithrillion because it's revealed to them that there is essentially this location on the Forerunner capital planet that allows them to access the domain. And it's also revealed to them that when early Forerunners had built this city, or this planet essentially, around this doorway to the domain, there was this living intelligence that allowed them to, it gave them permission to explore the domain. It taught them the domain. This turned it out to be Abaddon. Fun fact, even though the word Abaddon does not show up until Fractures, which is obviously released after the Forerunner saga, we do get another name for Abaddon, and that's Organon. If you remember from my Halo Cryptum video, the Organon is the precursor treasure or artifact that Born Stellar, as a young manipular, before he was ever ran into the Didact, before he was transmutated into a copy of the Didact, before everything went south in his life, he was this young explorative Forerunner who was looking for this Organon. He wanted to find treasure, and this was the greatest treasure. Turns out the greatest treasure was on Maithrillion this whole time. And the reason why it's known as the Organon is because the council, the first council of Foreigners, kept this doorway, this Abaddon, a secret to the domain. And so it got rumored. It turned into the Organon. It was like, ooh, this great precursor, mysterious artifact that people want to find. But what's interesting about Abaddon in this book, not in this book, but in Fractures, is, he only starts talking, not he. What we find out is that Abaddon, I guess I should give you a quick description. Abaddon is like a luminescent looking artificial being. And the best way to show it is this picture, which is in the encyclopedia, and you'll probably notice it looks a lot like the Guardian, and that's because it is in its way a guardian. It is the guardian and the protector of the domain. Now, whether when the Foreigners were building the Guardians, the actual ones we see in Halo 5, if the reason that they made this design was an inspiration from the Guardian of the Domain, or if Abaddon had greater like control on the design itself, we don't really know. I don't remember what is said about the Guardians' design, just that they were meant to look intimidating, and quite frankly, they do, alongside Abaddon. But in Fractures, when the Foreigners arrive to the Mysterium where this doorway is, Abaddon is, from the moment he senses their presence, is on site with the Foreigners, because he, she, it, because here's the thing, Abaddon has no gender. It is simply it. Not the clown, not Pennywise. But besides that, Abaddon has no specific gender. It is simply its own thing. And so when the Foreigners get there, Abaddon pretty much tells them that they will be awaiting judgment because of what they did with the rings. And what's cool is their ships and a lot of their technology shuts down the moment Abaddon starts speaking to them. And what's even more interesting is they end up getting attacked by two different things. Organic crawlers and organic sentinels. Like, they're almost living beings. They're still definitely technology, but something about them seems more alive rather than just machines. Like, there's wings now in the sentinels. The crawlers look more like a beast rather than just a cyborg. And that is very interesting because the way in which they were made was Abaddon had scanned their technology. It scanned their records. It found these things in their systems and said, okay, I'm going to take these, turn them into my own little minions. And that's what Abaddon does. So then obviously many people might be asking, okay, what happens with Abaddon in this book? Abaddon tells the Foreigners they're going to await trial, or they're going to be judged by itself. And for the most part, the judgment is death. So it pretty much disintegrates a few of the Foreigners. But before it can kill off Bornstellar or Chantagreen, who ends up becoming Bornstellar's future wife, another Foreigner whose name I'm blanking out on because Foreigners have very complex names. I think it's Trial Through Change or something like that. I'll have the name right here. Sacrifices herself by activating the domain. Basically, it doesn't say whether she's disintegrated or what, but something happens to where her soul, her life is now dedicated to becoming the help heal the domain. And what's explained is there's a knowledge that the Abaddon scans like technology and it can understand it. And so when the domain was reactivated, the belief is that Abaddon had essentially composed Trial because she was a member of the Life Shapers, like the whole Librarian's case system, the ones that take care of life. It scanned her genetic pattern, could use that to begin the healing process of the domain. After that happens, Abaddon's silent. It doesn't talk, it doesn't attack, the crew just leaves, and that's the end of Fractures. So then what does this mean for the Endless? Does this mean they are basically what Abaddon can do with technology, create organic life out of it? Part of me believes that is a possibility, because when the Harbinger is talking about basically being brought to life, she says vessels of eternal light, computation, circulation, quantum blood, and neural bone with a skin aglow of home. Now, I could be reading that wrong, but the way she discusses it sounds like that they are, in a way, both living, but also technology. They are essentially organic machines. And that might explain why when the rings went off, it didn't kill them. Because you gotta remember, the way the rings work is it's to kill sentient life. And now you could think, okay, well, aren't they still technically sentient? Possibly, but there's probably a reason why when the rings fired, originally, it didn't hurt Abaddon. you could argue Abaddon is not living, it's technology. But we know that this foreigner, this counselor in here says that Abaddon is living. It's just not in the same sense that we consider life to be. There's another video by Installation00 who goes deep into just the deepest level of lore you can, where he talks about the different levels of, I don't remember if it's technology or physics. I'll leave a link to it in my description below. But essentially he talks about how much more technologically advanced the precursors were, to the point where they were transcending life itself. And that could mean this is why Abaddon itself has the ability to survive the rings and create a piece of life that can survive the rings. What we get from the rest of the story is pretty much the Harbingers look at everything happen. You know, we do get to see this part where she talks about a new wave had crashed upon this galaxy's shores, a twisted deluge once more seeking unity, but not like before, and not as we sought. That sounds like, to me, the flood. It sounds like this wave, this flood came to the galaxy, twisted and deluged, that is trying to get unity. And the fact that the Harbinger says, once again, means to kind of what a lot of us have been believing with the precursors. This has happened before. The precursors come, they create life, then they culminate life back into them, and then they do it again in galaxy and galaxy. But the way she talks about the flood, it almost sounds like the flood was not the normal process. The flood definitely was a twisted version. Now, I was under the belief originally that the flood were intentional by the precursors, but maybe not. Maybe their precursors really did mess up, and the flood was still along the grand plan, but not to the degree that it became. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be a parasitic, demonic infestation, but something else that, we just never seen because the precursors messed up. And then we get to see that the Harbinger talks more about seeing Chief and Joyuse and how she wishes she could talk to them and make them understand, make them know the kings their species was meant to be. But obviously that was all changed by the Foreigners. Last thing that I want to discuss, and there's just so much to discuss, but I could be here for hours, and quite frankly, I think I want to read this at least 75 more times to really understand it. But there's a part in here where Harbinger says, each a kind of our own, to preserve, to cultivate, to build. We were as he is to us. Some we kept close, some we sent out, some remain among you. I'm wondering if this means that some of the Endless are still out there, either in this galaxy or another galaxy. Because what we see from the Granitic and the Criterion is they don't understand what the Endless are. They don't understand their origins. There's a belief they came from outside the galaxy, just like the precursors had. And this is where I think there's a very important part in Edge of Dawn's story that I did not talk about. And I didn't talk about it enough, at least, because I wanted to talk about it for this book. If you don't know what I'm talking about from that spoiler video, there's a part where Joyuse is basically attacked by an unknown intelligence. In Halo Infinite, when the random portal opens up for Chief to escape through from the Silent Auditorium, and the fact that Joyuse half the time says there's a sentient, intelligence helping her out, part of me believes that some of it is offensive bias, because we get that teaser at the end of Infinite with the Legendary when he says offensive bias has been deployed. He's been missing ever since the end of Halo Silentium, so God knows where he's at. Supposedly he's supposed to be guarding Mendicant Bias's burial, but Mendicant Bias got out. So part of me thinks it's Mendicant Bias, but also part of me, it could be the Abaddon. And the reason why I think that is because in this book, I'll read you the part right here, right now. So this is the part in the book where Joyuse is essentially under attack. And when I mean attacked, it's more of she even explains it herself. She feels violated. Something came into the system, it got into her data center, and it stole something from her. And it's never happened to her because She herself is this type of AI that's supposed to be able to get in and get out, take what she needs without anyone ever noticing. And the fact that it happened to her, but in a more violent and explosive way, she doesn't like it. So when it happens, she says, anger and denial supplanted her terror as she used all her strength to hold on to despondent Pyrus and Cephalon. As a web of shadowy filaments grabbed and constricted, she screamed frantically, attempting to maintain her grip. And this is what the voice says. Your cries are but an echo, wind rattling an empty cage. The voice was everywhere and carried so much power that she felt smothered under its immensity. Your meddling is over, young one. And then once again it says, I will only warn you once. And then that's it. She loses the encephalon. Whatever the intelligence was is suddenly gone. And just the way it sounds like Abaddon in Fractures, and I'll show you why. The first thing Abaddon pretty much says or screams is, born stellar makes eternal lasting. Splendid dust of ancients. A trial was to be held here. It was interrupted by your creation, Didact. You will face trial. You have failed the mantle. Behold what you have wrought. And again, it's just like this very demanding voice. This voice that has no male or female. It just sounds like it's everywhere. It sounds like it could be Abaddon who took the encephalon from Joyuse. I don't think it's offensive bias. Offensive bias, if anything, would be helping Joyuse and the chief because one, they're the reclaimers, and two, basically taking the encephalon prevents Joyuse from being able to access parts of the rings that she needs in order to stop the Banished and the Endless, thereby throttling their progression. Doing this would make no sense for offensive bias because then the two people he's supposed to be helping can no longer do what they need to do. It sounds more like Abaddon, who is trying to prevent them from stopping the Endless's return. Again, I don't think the Endless at the end of the day care about the Banished. The Banished don't care about them, they care about themselves. I just think that the Endless are doing what they can to get out. And this is a very intriguing story that I want to see where Halo takes it. I want to make sure that they capitalize off of this. And I know I said this in my actual review of Halo Edge of Dawn. When it comes to Halo 7, they need to capitalize. There's a lot going on in this book. But yes, that is the Harbinger's Lament. For me, it sets up a very interesting story, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I really hope that Halo does do well with this story and that they can take all of these aspects that they have inserted into this book and really just shine a light on it in the next Halo game and make this game truly like the best story written in a long time. Because man, these books they're really good at setting up those types of things. Now it's time for the team at the development crew to be able to capitalize off of this. But that is pretty much it for today's video. Now you're probably seeing why this video is its own video. It's not super long, but it is relatively long compared to some of the other videos that I had written, and I just really wanted to make sure I could focus as much time on the Abaddon and the Endless because I think it's such a unique story and it's very interesting, and I just think it really needed that spotlight. I cannot wait till you guys and fellow content creators get your hands on this book, read that same little short story at the very end, because I'm intrigued to see how you guys all interpreted what the Harbinger's saying, what it could mean for the next Halo game, and just seeing all the new theories that can come out of this. But I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.